So what is the example that I gave here? Like implementing a new module or new functionality.
IRCTC example.
Yeah, we discussed IRCTC example, Facebook example. Facebook,
Yes.
when
Dark. Yes,
dark mode
yes.
is introduced, right? And IRCTC example, I gave one example with IRCTC application. So what is the new feature that is introduced?
Probability of getting is.
Yeah, confirmation probability feature,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
If it is red bus, I gave one example over there.
Reschedule.
Reset.
Right. So rescheduling the ticket. So whenever such new features are introduced in any application, so we have to do, even though the application is in production, already in production, right? We need to do performance testing again whenever some new functionality or new feature is introduced, right?
Yes.
And I gave one example for this: increasing number of users or adding new users.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So I gave this example, like, hold on one second. Let me open your meeting notes. Right. So when Kotak Mahindra Bank, yeah. So I gave this example, right? So if you assume that, before it, so see, in 2019, like Kotak Mahindra Bank acquired ING Vysya Bank, right? So let's assume that if Kotak Mahindra Bank has some 20 lakh net banking users previously who are using Kotak.com, right? Post acquisition and merger, right? Once Kotak Mahindra merger is completed, I mean, ING Vysya Bank merger is completed with Kotak Mahindra Bank. So ING Vysya Bank users will also be using this Kotak.com website, right? Right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And also, if you know, like in 2018, SBI acquired, five different, SBI subsidiaries got merged into the parent SBI group.
SBH.
So, yes, SBH and State Bank of Hyderabad, State Bank of Mysore, State Bank of Bikaner and Jaipur, State Bank of Travancore, and one more bank, some Bharti Mahila Bank or something. So 5 banks got merged into the parent group SBI.com. Right. Now all this post this merger. So previously SBH users used to use State Bank of online SBH.com or something, right? So they have their own domains and they have their own websites, right? Or there is one more bank called Bharti Mahila Bank. I remember that is Bharti Mahila Bank. See, Associate Banks merger with SBI, right? This was done in 17 or 18. Sorry. Right? You might have heard this news, right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Bharti Mahila Bank. Yeah. So post this merger, like there will be new set of users who will be accessing this online SBI.com, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. So that is the best example for for this scenario, right? Whatever I have explained over here. Increasing number of users or adding new users, right?
Yes.
And whenever there is some software upgrade like database upgrade or OS migration on servers, and whenever there is some hardware upgrade, like even though the application is already existing, we have to do performance testing for that application, right?
Yes.
So any queries in this, like and these are the scenarios why we need to do. These are the reasons why we need to do performance testing for a newly built application, right? Any queries? And I also covered like what are the prerequisites for performance testing, right? What are the prerequisites? What are the KPIs, key performance indicators, right? We will revisit all these terms like once we start scripting and executions. we'll revisit all these terms. You'll understand those terms in a better way at that time. Okay. So in this session, like we are going to discuss like what are the different types of performance testing, okay, in detail, and we'll have an assessment at the end of the session. I'll show you some graphs and you have to identify what type of test is that. Is that fine? So first I will explain you what are the different types of performance testing, and then I will show you some graphs. Very important, concepts to understand and remember. So I'll go with one by one. Sorry. Yeah. So the first type of performance testing is load testing, right? The first type of performance testing is load testing. We already discussed some examples, right? So like I gave some numbers as well. So Facebook having some 20 million users as per like 2019 or statistics or 20 statistics. Facebook has some 20 million users across the globe, right? And IRCTC is used by how many users?
7 lakh.
Per day, 8 lakhs per day.
Yeah, 7 to 8 lakhs per day, somewhere around like 7 to 8 lakhs per day, right? So when you're doing a load test with some that such kind of applications, like we have to do with the expected user load or normal user load, right, for 1 to 2 hours. So load testing is something which we test with expected or normal user load for 1 to 2 hours, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. See, you have different types of tests over here, different types of performance tests over here. So I'm going to explain like why do we have the what is the difference between each of these types, and right, and like what is the process involved in doing those each type of test, right? So the next type of test is endurance testing or soak testing. So these are long duration tests, as you can see here, right? So when I say long duration, it can be some 8 hours or 10 hours or 1 day, 2 day, 3 days as well, right? So basically the basic reason is the basic objective of doing this soak test is like to test the application behavior, right? How is the application behavior when it is subjected to load for longer durations, right? And the duration depends on the business hours of the application. Mostly the business, mostly the duration depends on business hours of the application. So how much time, how many hours, like the application will be subjected to load continuously. Is it clear? We'll discuss this endurance test in detail later on, but now for now remember that remember what is soak or endurance test, and how the duration will be decided. Clear? So soak or endurance test is something which we do for longer duration, like 8 hours or or 10 hours or 12 hours or 16 hours, or it can go to till days also. Clear? So the next type of test is stress testing. So stress testing is something which we do with more than normal load on the application, right? So on a travel application, there will be more number of users during festival days, right? On a travel application like IRCTC or Redbus, right? There will be more number of users on during festival days or during vacation period, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. So if you are testing such kind of applications, right? See, understand that not all applications require all the types of testing. Every application doesn't require every type of these type of this performance testing, right? Based on the application and based on the requirement, like we do different types of performance testing. So stress testing is one of them. And which applications require such this stress testing?
Travel applications.
Yeah,
E-commerce application.
travel applications or e-commerce. Yeah, yes, e-commerce, right? So where we can expect more than normal load on the application, right? So for those kind of applications, we do this stress testing. Okay. The next type of testing is spike testing, right? So this is the one we are discussing now. So spike testing is, like Tatkal booking is the best example for spike testing, right? Tatkal booking time for IRCTC, right? So when we have, I think like 8 a.m. like sorry 10 a.m. Like sleeper class booking starts, right?
Yes.
Sleeper AC Tatkal booking starts for sleeper class, and at 11 some I think like
Till
AC
close.
AC booking starts, right?
Yeah, yeah.
AC coaches booking starts, right? So whatever it is. So, but we know that like there will be thousands and lakhs of users who will be trying to book the ticket at the same time, right? So so we call these as spikes, right? There is a sudden spike means a sudden surge. What general meaning of spike is a sudden surge, right?
Yes.
So to test such kind of applications, like we do this spike testing, right? So these are the best examples I can say, like Tatkal booking for IRCTC or flash sale in e-commerce sites, right? Big billion sale on Flipkart or Amazon, right? So when you are testing these kind of applications, right, we do this, we have to do spike testing as well. In additional to load testing, endurance testing, we have to do spike testing as well. Clear?
Yes.
So, the reason why I marked these is like, for any kind of application, we have to do this load testing and soak testing. So that's the reason I marked these two tests in a different color.
Okay.
Got it?
Yes, sir.
Right. And the next type of testing is volume testing. So volume testing is something which we do with huge volume of data in the database. Okay. Volume testing is something which we do with huge volume of data in the database. So let me give some, let's discuss some real world scenario. Assume that everyone use net banking application, right?
Yes, sir.
So when you are doing any transaction, so one record will be inserted into the database, right? Some records will be inserted into the database whenever you do some transaction, right?
Yes.
Right. So with due course of time, as as days pass by, there will be a lot of such records, huge volume of data will be accumulating in the database, right?
Yes, sir.
Mm.
So assume that today you have some 1 lakh records in your database. In a net banking application, there are 1 lakh records in your database. And after 1 year, after any 2 years, like it may go to 2 lakhs or 3 lakhs and so on, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. And
Yes,
most of the performance issues that happens in real world happens at the database layer, right? So because of because of some SQL queries and all, right? So to test that, to test the application behavior when there is large volume of data in the database, we do this volume testing. We do something called volume testing,
yes, sir.
right? So we will do each different types of tests, once we are done with scripting. We'll do this load test, long duration test, and stress test, spike test, right? Volume testing we may not be doing it practically, but I'll show you these load testing, endurance test, stress test, and spike test. Okay, when we are done with the scripting and when we go for executions, test executions, we will do this. We'll revisit these terms again. Okay, so I have detailed explanation in the next slide. So here I am, I want to just introduce the these different types of tests.
Yeah.
The next type of testing is scalability testing, right? So scalability testing is testing an application to verify how much it can scale, right? So assume that we have some so Facebook has 20 million users now, right? So Facebook currently, assume that in 2020, as per 2020 statistics, it has some 20 million users, right? And they have projections that by next year or in another 1 or 2 years, it will reach, their user base will increase to 30 million, right? So now Facebook want to test whether the existing infrastructure can support that that feature load, right? Then they do this something called scalability testing, right? So scalability testing is nothing but testing an application for feature load. Okay. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes.
So these are the important performance testing types, right, that we have over here, right? And now there are few more types, few more performance testing types, like failover testing, and capacity testing is almost similar to scalability testing. So we'll discuss in detail, like going forward in the future sessions. Okay.
Mm.
So in the next slide, I explained, different types of tests in detail, right? So load testing is something, load testing generally simulates current user load on the system, right? As I mentioned in the previous slide, like load testing is something which we do with expected or normal user load for 1 to 2 hours, right? And we remember that, we do with current user load or normal user load. Okay. And as I mentioned, like it is usually done for 1 to 2 hours, and load test ensures that application is stable and can handle expected peak load. Load test ensures that application is stable and can handle expected peak load. Okay. No queries regarding the load test, right?
Yes, sir.
Load test is mandatory test that will be done prior to any other performance test type, right? The next test is soak test. As I explained, like it is conducted for longer durations based on the business hours of the application. It can be 4 hours or 8 hours or 16 hours or 1 day or 3 days and so on, right? So the main objective is of a soak test is to identify performance bottlenecks like memory leaks or connection leaks, right? So I'll explain what is a memory leak and what is a connection leak in the future sessions, in the coming up sessions. But for now, remember that, the main object, so each test has a different purpose, right? As you can see, each test has a different purpose and different approach, right? So load test is something which we done with the current for 1 to 2 hours. Whereas soak or endurance test is something which we do for, longer duration. Okay. And the main objective is to identify memory leaks and connection leaks, right? And the next type of testing is stress test. So that is done by gradual increase of user load until the application breaks. Means until the application breaks means see, stress test is done by gradual increase of user load. First, we do a load test for 1 to 2 hours with the expected user load, and then we gradually increase the user load until the application breaks. Means until the application throws, page can't be displayed or high response times or error pages, right? So basically, the objective of this stress test is to identify an application's breaking point. Means what is the maximum user load that it can, it can bear, the application can serve. Here, the main purpose of stress testing is to identify an application's breaking point. Here, guys,
No.
Yes, sir.
right? And response times and an error count increases once breaking point is attained. So how do we define that breaking point? So whenever response times are increasing and error count starts increasing, we can conclude that the application reached the breaking point, right? Or that is the max load. What is the max load that it supports before these errors, right? Our response times getting high, that will be concluded as the capacity of that application, right? Is it clear here or any queries?
So, Kishore, soak test is also conducted on current user load. This is the difference with.
Yeah, so soak test is conducted with 75% of the normal user load.
Okay.
Sir, in soak test, main objective is to identify the performance bottlenecks like memory leaks and connection leaks. Memory leaks or connection leaks.
Yeah, I will explain that memory leaks and connection leaks. What is that memory leaks and connection leaks in the next sessions? Okay, so we have some freshers as well. So I'll explain, like, I have to explain heap concepts. If I want to explain this, I want to explain heap concepts, Java concepts, and then I can explain memory leak. What is a memory leak? So basically, to give you an overview, so whenever any user access any application, some memory will be consumed by each user. Some memory will be consumed by each user on the server, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So as something, like for every user, a session ID will be created on the server, and some memory will be allocated for each user as and when he is accessing the application. So once the user logs out or once the user session timeout happens, right, that memory should be released back to the server, to the pool. Right.
Okay.
So if it doesn't happen, that is called as a memory leak.
Okay.
So in the same way, whenever a user access any application, right? So he may establish, a database connection can be established with the database. right? I'll explain that, when I'll explain the session ID concepts when I explain this, over here. So whenever user access any application, like session ID object will be created on the server, right? As well as the user may require a database connection as well, right? If you want, if the operation involves if the user transaction,
Yes.
the user transaction involves some data, right? So a connection has to be established with the database server, right? Which is time consuming process. So to avoid that, there is a concept called connection pool. Okay. So once I explain all these concepts, I will explain those. What is meant by connection pool and all.
Okay.
Then I will explain what is a connection leak.
Yes, sir.
So just because the database connection, establishing a connection is time taking process. So, every database will have something called connection pool. Means as soon as the database server is started, some connections will be established and kept in a pool ready for the users. So whenever a user comes, that user will be assigned one connection from the pool. And once his job is done, that connection will be returned to the pool for other users. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So if that doesn't happen, and if the connection is getting hold with that user, like that is called as a connection leak.
Yes. Yes. Thanks.
Yeah. So let's move. So any queries over here?
No. No, sir.
Yeah. So the next type of testing is spike testing. So spike testing is done with sudden increase in user load. See, then the general meaning of spike is sudden surge, right? So spike testing is something which we do by sudden increase in user load, right? Beyond expected load for shorter durations, right? We see I gave some examples, right? So, for Tatkal booking in IRCTC, there will be sudden surge for shorter durations, like for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, right? As soon as the booking opens, correct?
Yes.
Right. So to simulate such scenarios, we do this spike testing.
Yes.
Right. So spike testing can be considered as a subset of stress testing. Right.
Yes.
The next type of testing is volume testing, which I explained just now. Right. So volume testing is done to verify response times when there is huge volume of data in the database. Right. Okay. So, and it is also referred to as a flood testing. Volume testing is also called as flood testing. So volume testing is done to analyze the system performance by increasing the volume of data in the database. Okay. Volume testing is done to analyze the system performance by increasing volume of data in the database. So suppose if you want, assume that today you have only some 1 lakh users in your database, right? And assume that, after 1 year or 2 years, or 1 or 2 years, like, there will be some 3 to 4 lakh records in the database. So how we do this is, like, we will increase the volume of data. We will maintain some volume of data in the database, and we will do this low volume testing to simulate such scenarios, or to verify how the application behavior will be, how are the response times when there is large volume of data, right? So we do this volume testing. Right? And scalability testing also I explained. So it is performed to identify if the application is capable to scale up in terms of user load. Right? So this is, as I said, like, this is to test the application with future load. Right? So these are the important types of performance testing. So apart from this, you have something called failover testing. Failover testing I will explain. I can give some best examples for failover testing. With some real world scenarios, I'll explain later. So any queries still here?
No.
So now that we discussed different types of testing, right? So try to identify what type of testing is this. I have some 4 to 5 graphs. I have some 5 graphs with me now. So what type of test is this?
Spike testing.
Yeah. So this clearly spike testing, right? So, this, we can say that this is expected load, and there are certain, there is some certain increase in the user load over here, right? For a shorter duration, for some duration, right? So we can say that, like the reason why I included these graphs is, in some interviews, like interviewer will ask you, like, how can you plot a graph for, spike testing or stress testing, or, uh, stress testing or spike testing and so on, or endurance test, or can you plot graphs for each different types of testing, right? So that's the reason I introduced this, also to get an assessment, like on your understanding. Okay, so if you observe here on the x-axis we have test duration, and y-axis you have virtual users. We have number of virtual users on y-axis, and if you assume that this is the normal user load, right? So this line, horizontal line, is the normal user load, and there are two spikes, one shorter spike and one bit higher spike, right? A small spike over here and a big spike over here, right? So we can say that this is spike testing, or if they ask you to draw a graph for spike testing, you can draw like this. Here.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And what type of testing is this?
Load test.
Right. So on the x-axis you can see the test duration. Again on y-axis you can see virtual users, and here it's mentioned time, right? So 1 hour, 1h, right? This is 1 hour, right? So load test is something which we do with expected user load, and what this is called as, ramp up, steady state, steady state, and then this is called as ramp down.
Ramp down.
Okay. So means we are increasing the users gradually. Ramp up means we are increasing the users on the application gradually. And this is steady state. Steady state means there is no change in the user load. And here we are decreasing those users, means we are ramping down those users, right? So this is called as ramp up, steady state, and ramp down. And as you can see, the duration is 1 hour. Like you can say that this graph best represents a load test, right? And this one,
Scalability test.
so we are increasing the load gradually, right?
Yes.
So we can call that as a stress test, or yes. See, basically, like, yeah, we can say that it is a subset of scalability testing, but you can say that it is a stress test or a subset of scalability testing. Okay, shall we move on? This one.
Endurance.
Right. So as you can see, like, the test is for 5 hours, right? So we can say that this is an endurance test, right? Hey, who's that answering? So give others chance, man. Is it
Okay.
Lakshman or?
Yeah, it's me.
Okay. Okay. Let others answer. Yeah. So how about this?
Volume testing.
Yeah. So observe here, y-axis, we are the graph represents a data quantity on y-axis, right? It's not a number of users, virtual users, right? But it is data quantity, right? So this graph best represents a volume test. Okay. Yeah. So let's quickly discuss, like, what is the importance of performance testing, right? So we all know that, right? So if you remember, like IRCTC, like if you used IRCTC like couple of years back, like around 10 years back, right? If anyone used IRCTC like around 10 years back, the performance used to be very horrible. So there is, if we sat for like booking a ticket, there is no guarantee that the ticket will be booked, right? So the application used to break at some point, like whether entering the passenger's details or making the payment, it used to break, right? So we used to, like, whenever we wanted to book a ticket in IRCTC, we used to try, like, if you want to book one ticket, 2 to 3 people used to try from different systems, right? I have that experience, right? So trying from 2 to 3 different systems, like if you want to book a ticket, right? So there is, so also when, so at that time what we did is, like we getting vexed up with IRCTC, we moved to Clear Trip or Clear Trip, I remember, right? So Clear Trip also provides like this railway reservation, right? So basically, if your application response times are high or if your application performance is not good, we move to we move to the alternatives. We'll search for the alternatives, right? We'll go to some other websites or some other applications which serve the same purpose, right? I don't know whether you or else I can give another example of Axis Bank. Axis Bank, like previously, whenever I tried some transaction, some fund transfer or so anything, so there is some OTP process. So in the initial days of Axis Bank introducing OTP, that OTP used to come very late, and by the time I enter OTP, it used to say like OTP has expired. Again, we have to reinitiate the transaction. Did anyone experience this? Guys, how many of you are using Axis Bank?
No, sir.
How many of you are aware of this issue? So, I stopped using Axis Bank and I moved to Kotak Mahindra Bank, because by the time the OTP comes to my mobile, like, and I enter the OTP, it used to say like OTP expired and we have to reinitiate the transaction, right? So if the response times are, high of any application, we'll go for some other application. We'll look for alternatives, and we'll go for the competitors' websites or the competitors' applications. Correct? Right. So here in this example, I mentioned like, response times are more than 5 seconds, of course, right? These are called as SLAs, service level agreements. So we'll discuss in detail, like what are SLAs and all. But for now, remember that, like if response times are high than expected, like most users move away to other websites or applications, right? And, because of poor web application performance, no matter how much, business, how much good is your business, right? There will be, estimated loss of $4 to $5 billion if the web application performance is poor, not good. Right? And inadequate performance can adversely impact revenue by up to 10% as per a research done by Aberdeen. Right? So these are some numbers given by some research institutes. So business performance begins to suffer at 5 seconds of delay in web application response time and 4 seconds for critical applications. And any additional second of waiting on a website significantly impacts customer satisfaction and visitor conversion. Visitor conversion means like, that user, registering with the application and starts using. See, you came across some application, new application, or else, let me take this example. So right now you have two e-commerce giants in India like Flipkart and Amazon. And, tomorrow like Reliance is coming into the same business, right? So if Reliance website is not good, like, if performance is not good, obviously the user will stick to Flipkart and Amazon. They will not even register for Geo, right? So you might have heard this news, right? That Reliance Geo is coming with coming into the same business, or it already came, right? GeoMart. There are the Reliance is establishing the similar kind of e-commerce business like called a GeoMart, right? So you may be browsing that, once the website is launched, you may be browsing that application, and if you feel that the application performance is good, or you will register to that site and you'll start using that GeoMart. But if your application performance is not at all good, like obviously like you will stick to Flipkart or Amazon, your existing accounts, right? So any additional second of waiting on a website impacts customer satisfaction and visitors conversions, right? So I can give some example, like, last year, like I remember very well. So during the, I think in 2019, I guess, like, we have Kim's Hospital nearby, right? To our home, we have Kim's Hospital nearby. And, like during there, in 2019 or so, there is a viral season, viral fever season, right? Sometimes, everyone in each household got, affected by viral fever. So I called, we used to usually go to Kim's because that is very close to our home, right? So I called Kim's Hospital for an appointment, and they said that, their application is not responding to book an appointment. They couldn't give an appointment, like because their application is not responding, right? So then I cannot wait, they asked me to call for after an hour, right? I called after an hour and still they're stuck up with the same issue. Then I looked for other alternatives and I went for some other hospital. Okay. Some other hospital, nearby hospital, right? So, and I like the treatment over there, over the new hospital. And, I'm continuing with them. After that, I never, I did not go back to KIMS anytime because I like the treatment in the new hospital that I have went at that time, right? So obviously, and also not just my, like I posted in my WhatsApp group that, actually the clinic name is Cherish Clinic. So, Sai Kumar, right? Actor Sai Kumar, right? So her daughter is the, is the main, pediatric in that hospital, that Cherish Clinic, right? Which I switched from, KIMS to KIMS pediatric section to, like I stopped going to KIMS and I started going there, right? So not just that, I liked the doctor's treatment and I start, we became like a, regular customer or regular client for, for that new hospital, right? Not just myself, I posted about this, Cherish Clinic because, obviously KIMS is a corporate hospital and the charges will be high, right? So I posted about this Cherish Clinic like in my WhatsApp group, in my community WhatsApp group, and most of the users, most of the co-residents started going there. You got it right? So just because KIMS hospital software did not work for a day, right? They lost many customers. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
So that is, and also like it is the performance testing team, like so performance testing team has to ultimately decide like whether we have to a build should go into production or not. So that is the importance of performance testing because it obviously impacts the user satisfaction, customer satisfaction, and visitor conversions and so on. All right, so I'll stop it here for the day.
The degradation, like, is it because the cron jobs are taking a lot of system resources like CPU, memory, all that stuff? Or is it because all the that is the primary reason basically for the cron jobs. If they are running during the regular business hours, if they are taking most of the resources, then that is going to impact the end users. So you need to determine whether those jobs can be run during the non-business hours, number one. If not, probably you need to run them in the separate systems. So that these resources are, the regular traffic is not impacted. So there are several ways that it is more at the architecture level. They decide how to assign resources for these cron jobs. Probably you can say that this cron job cannot take more than, for example, half of the system resources in terms of CPU and memory. So that's one way that they can ensure. But we need to determine which of those cron jobs are actually causing it. If you mentioned that it is reading the resources, reading the files, right? Whenever you upload the files, it is causing. So you need to understand whether it is reading the files that is taking longer, or after reading the files while writing it to the database, if it is spending most of the time there. So that's how, as I was saying earlier, right? Volume testing is where we identify that impact. While running the cron jobs in the backend, how is it impacting the regular traffic? So that's one part of the volume testing that we usually run. So that's where we determine the impact of these cron jobs, and then also determine whether they need to be run separately during the non-business hours or something like that.
Yeah, or we have to, if we need to run them parallelly, so we have to fix that issues first, like that those cron jobs, utilizing more resources.
We can
One thing, or you can ask the team to tune those cron jobs so that they will be
To
completed.
optimize the performance of those cron jobs and not impact the resources, server resources.
okay.
Correct.
We can uh, we can tell that certain load it is with that certain load it is okay. We can tell to the developers team, like if we are if 100 files are processing, the performance is good. If 1000 files are processing, the site is down. Like that we can estimate how much max load it can bear. Can we test like that, sir?
So usually in cron jobs, right? Doesn't matter how many files, there will be fixed number of tasks that will be running these files in parallel, right?
Yeah.
So if it is 100, probably it is going to be completed in 10 minutes. If it is 1000, it may take like 100 minutes or 150 minutes, right?
Yeah, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So in that case, right, the end traffic will be impacted for longer duration, but not really like having 1000 tasks or 1000 files will impact the application making it completely down. It is only that the effect will be longer, but even if we are doing 100 files or 1000 files, the impact should be the same.
Yeah, sir.
Unless for each file, if the cron job is creating a new task and if all the files are processed in parallel, then yes, it is going to impact.
Yes, sir. Can
But
like
basically, you need to understand what those jobs are doing first.
yeah,
If they are running all the files in parallel, or if it is doing certain number of files at any given time.
yeah. Can we know the breakpoints? Breakpoint like that in normal testing, normal performance testing, we know that breakpoint, no, sir. Like in 1 lakh users, the system will break down. Like that, we can know in cron jobs also because in this week only nearly 2 times our system uh, breakdowns. Site is not working due to that. At a time, uh, at a time, bunch of records are processing, then performance is very poor, sir, and that site also down, sir, due to that. Can we know that how many files we can process, like breakpoint in 101 users, we the system performance will be down. Like 100 users it can bear. Like that, can we know that
Yeah, you can do that. You can run those batch jobs with probably 10 files, 100 files, or 50 files, and you can go in increments and see where exactly the performance is degrading or
Start suffering. Yeah.
yeah,
so it's similar to the step incremental or scalability load pattern that you saw in the presentation. You can have the same number of the files, like you start at 10 and see if it is working, and then you add 10 more. Like your second test will be for 20, and then the third test will be for 30 and so on, or 50 and so on, and see where it breaks.
And
parallel.
also, like, monitor your CPU and memory utilization on the servers, like, what, so that you'll understand, like, what is the root cause of that issue. Like, is it because of CPU maxing out, or memories, whether you're running out of memory, available memory, and so on.
Okay.
Or it is because of disk writing to the disk. I mean, disk usage is high at that point, like, right? So you'll understand what exactly is the root cause.
Yeah, okay, sir.
So when it is when you are uploading a file and it is writing something, right? Obviously, the disk utilization will be high, right? Or is it because of like the table issue? I mean, like, whenever you are writing you are uploading some file, maybe like the user has to acquire a lock on a table, right? To input that data, right? So like, we have to like figure out what exactly is the root cause, like whether it is a resource issue or issue at a database level.
Yeah, okay, sir.
Anji, correct me if I am wrong.